at the postgraduate school. I'll be your moderator for this afternoon. Firstly, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking your time in attending this workshop, but above all, to thank our facilitator, Prof. Elvis, for taking his time also to facilitate this kind of workshop. Prof, we are honored and we really appreciate your time. Colleagues, before I can move on, firstly, please do note that this workshop is recorded. We will keep and share the recording of this workshop as well as the resources, which include the presentation that was used to this workshop together with the recording. We will upload the resources to model communities, which is the postgraduate, masters, and doctoral model community. Also, we will upload to the RCT management system, which is the new platform that we currently have at the unit, which is available under services. When you log into your ULink under services, the last option is RCT MS. You can just populate your profile and be able to book for any upcoming workshop, or also attend or have access to all the previous workshop. I see someone has their hand up. Is there a problem? Let me just unmute. Okay, I'll get to the person shortly. Just allow me to finish here and then I'll attend to you. Colleagues, I'll be just some few housekeeping rules. I'll be sharing a feedback evaluations toward the end of the session. The feedback will be shared on the chat, the link. We kindly request you to take your 2 to 3 minutes to fill in the feedback. It helps us in terms of improving our service delivery, as well as to give feedback to all our facilitators for taking their time in facilitating this workshop. So the feedback helps us in terms of reporting purposes. So we kindly request you to take your 2 to 3 minutes to fill in the feedback. It also ensures that you get the certificate of attendance for each and every workshop that we have attended. Particularly for this workshop, we will issue a certificate of attendance via the feedback. So if you have filled in the feedback, and then that is where we'll get all your details and issue a certificate of attendance. Also, we do encourage an interactive engagement. So if you do have any question regarding the presentation or the session, you are more than welcome to just raise your hand, or alternatively, you can type under the chat. I will notify Prof that someone has their hand raised or someone has a question on the chat. Prof, if I may ask from your side, would you prefer to take questions at the end of your presentation or as you go with your presentation?
Anytime, because taking question during the presentation also help them to understand better. I think anytime will be fine with me.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, noted. So colleagues, if you do have a question, you can just raise a hand or alternatively type under the chat and I'll notify Prof that someone has a question or any contribution that you would like to make. With that being said, colleagues, now allow me to introduce our facilitator, Prof Elvis. I'll just quickly go through his bio shortly and then I'll hand over the session to Prof. Prof. Elvis is a multi-award-winning NRF-rated researcher and patent holder in the Department of Metallurgy at the University of Johannesburg. Prof holds a D.Tech in hydrometallurgy and has published extensively on sustainable mineral extraction, environmental remediation, and circular economy approaches in mining. His work has earned national and international recognition, including the 2019 NSTF Award for Engineering Research Capacity Development and a Teaching Excellence Award. Prof has also supervised numerous MSc and PhD students, serves on scientific committees and reviews for over 30 international journals. He is an active member of professional bodies such as SAIMM, WISA, IMWA, and SACNASP, contributing significantly to research innovation and capacity development in mining and environmental engineering. Thank you, colleagues. That is our facilitator, Prof. Elvis. Prof, thank you once again for honoring our invite. We're looking forward to a very insightful presentation. To the colleagues who have attended this session, please do engage, ask a question, and type them under the chat, or alternatively, just raise your hand, and I will notify Prof. Once again, thank you, colleagues, for your attendance. To everyone. Prof, I now hand over to you. You can start with your presentation. Thank you. Sorry, Prof, your mic has been disabled. We can't hear
you.
you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's quite an honor for me to be here today. I'm an alumni of this university. I studied at UJ, so I was a student. I did my postdoc here, starting first with my BTech and then eventually my master, PhD, and postdoc. I worked here for a while before leaving, and I came back in 2023. So it's quite a pleasure for me to give back to the students who are here now. Good afternoon, all of you. So before I start, I will try to share with you. I have a booklet already because I've been doing this type of workshop for students and for emerging researcher staff, younger staff, for a couple of years and around the country. So eventually I had to write a booklet. That's a guide for emerging researcher. I'll just try to show you the cover. You don't have to worry. I will share. I'll make it available for free. This document so that you guys can use. That's a document that you will use throughout as student now, but also eventually as you are starting to establish yourself as a researcher. So some of the content of my presentation are therefore from this document. Can you see my slide? Maybe by the show of hands or something. Or a thumbs up. Can you see what I'm sharing? Okay, thank you very much. So this is a booklet that I wrote, I think 2 or 3 years back. And it's the result of what I've been doing for a couple of years. So just actually training student or staff with regard to research. I will start my video now. I think okay. So I've been invited today to talk about the structure of a manuscript for people of natural science, but it can be considered as maybe a general approach. It's a short presentation. Generally, I will take half a day or maybe a day, but you won't miss everything. I think I try to put everything that could actually be of use to you to write a good manuscript. To start first, I will say the manuscript, everything starts with the design. So as you are designing your project, it's very important to think about the relevance of that project. What problem are you trying to solve? That's why we talk about the particularity or the novelty of a manuscript. That's very important. That will weigh to about maybe 30 to 50% of the chances of getting the manuscript accepted. And then you have the structuring of the objectives of that manuscript, because that the way you structure the objectives also will actually help you to design a good experiment or good methodology. And as you are dealing with the methodology, I'm just trying to introduce the topic here. As you are writing the methodology, it's very important for you to use the relevant equipment for characterization. Very important. So the characterization that you are doing in your work or your paper will count also to about 30% for in terms of the chances to having your manuscript accepted for publication. The language of your manuscript is also very important. So if you are not by essence English speaker, make use of language editor to improve the quality of your manuscript, because it doesn't matter how good your manuscript is if there's no flow as far as the language is concerned. The chances for the manuscript to be rejected are relatively high. So that's very important. So let me start. I'll stop with I will share the booklet with you eventually. I think the chair of this session can please remind me to make that booklet available for you guys. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, Prof, we can see your presentation.
Okay. I'm just trying to see where to have the slide show. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the topic today is manuscript structure and formatting. So I have a couple of points that I would like to emphasize on as we go through this presentation. First of all, why are we publishing? We have to differentiate between research and review paper. So our focus today is on research paper, essentially. So we look at the structure, which is actually the core of the topic today, of the paper, giving some detail, more information about the content. And then we will see, we'll go through the submission checklist, the author guideline, and there will be an assignment that actually relate to the topic of today. And I receive an abstract. I think only one person sent an abstract. And then we will quickly go through that abstract. And then there will be a Q&A session. But as I said initially, feel free to ask questions, to stop me at any time if you have a question, a burning question. So why do we publish? That's very important. If you remember, as I was speaking at the beginning of this session, I said, for you to publish, everything starts with the design. So you first of all have to see if it's relevant. The work that you want to do embark on is relevant. And that's done through a thorough literature review. So you have to identify a gap. You must be able to say, by the time I submit this paper, or when this paper is submitted, it will add value to the scientific world. So are you bringing more of knowledge, or you're actually just publishing what's already known? So that's the first question. So for you to be able to publish, or for you to publish, you have to be able to contribute to the existing knowledge. You have to actually solve a problem. That's how we put it. So your publication must be able to solve a problem. That's very important. That's why you have to publish. So it also helps the publication in terms of career advancement. So these days, when you send your CV please remember this, to an employer if you're in the academic domain. So that CV that you are sending is not what people look at first. Once we have your name, we just have to go online and type that name and see exactly what you are capable of. And that's your publication, essentially. So when someone sends me an email to say, okay, I want to join your research group as a postdoc. So the first thing that I do is a reflex. I just have to go and type the name of that person, maybe on Google search also, and see what's the person doing, in what field is the person publishing, what type of journal is the person considering for publication. So in terms of career advancement promotion, but also in finding a job, your publication will actually define your fate. So that's very important. So visibility and influence. You'll see that researchers are always encouraged to try to advertise or to make public their publication. So, so that they can actually be cited. Remember that you have to be able to make an impact. And when I look at my booklet, what I wrote a couple of years back, the impact of a researcher is measured based on the following criteria: the number of work published, the total number of citations that you received from that publication, the average number of citations per work published, the number of significant work published, the number of citations received by the most frequently cited works. A second. So that's how we can determine your impact as a researcher. So it's very important to publish quality paper, and you must know where you publish. Don't go for the easiest one, because there are a lot of predatory journals out there. So for you to be considered, or for your publication to be considered, it has to be published in accredited journal. So you have to target those type of journal. It's not relatively so easy. It's not easy, I know that, but before you publish, you have to work on your paper. As I said, designing first the work that you want to investigate, and also how you carry out the experiment, and eventually how you write, take into account the language that actually will determine the acceptability of your paper. So funding and recognition. So there are many aspects here. When you publish a paper, good quality paper, okay, it attracts a lot of researcher, or a lot of people, or the audience. So that paper is solicited. So people can therefore cite your paper, but also very important, people can refer to that paper when it comes maybe to the evaluation of your application. So if you are sending, for example, a proposal, a research proposal for funding, so your publication can actually play a role in terms of determining the acceptability of your proposal. So that's an aspect. But also, when you're in academia, there are incentives from the DHET regarding the publication. So you receive a certain amount of money when you publish. That's very important. So now when we talk about publication or publication of papers, we have the research papers, I say, and we have the review paper. So the research paper generally is from the original findings. So you're actually publishing about the data that you sourced by yourself. You generated those data. And when you are talking about review paper, you're actually using the secondary data that are already available out there that you are trying to summarize and make some critical analysis about. So when you look therefore at the source are obviously different. So you are getting the information from different type of sources. In terms of the focus, there's a kind of narrow focus with regard So we have a narrow focus because when you are writing a research paper, you actually determine certain objectives or research questions that you want to address. It's quite specific. But when you are dealing with a review paper, you have a broader concept. So you are targeting a wide range of paper to actually make your point. How do you get the information? As something that I just mentioned. So with research paper, you actually collect your own sample and you generate your own data. You carry out the experiment in the lab, or you do new analysis to get the information. But for review paper, you synthesize and you evaluate existing study. For research paper, when we talk about the impact, you have to actually contribute new knowledge, okay? You have to fill a certain gap that exists in the literature through your work. But with review paper, you basically improve the understanding of the publication that are already out there, okay? And you actually try to organize existing knowledge. That's what the review paper is essentially about. Our focus today will be on research paper, essentially. So when we talk about research paper, this is the structure of your paper. Generally, when people talk about this structure, they have what they call the IMRAD. So they essentially focus on the introduction, the methodology, and the result and discussion. But let's start from the abstract and end with the conclusion or maybe the references here. No questions so far, I hope. Okay, I assume no question. So I'll therefore continue. So when we talk about abstract, so that's the first part of your research paper. An abstract summarize the content of your work. The number of words generally limited. It should be less than 300 words. So this is the first section that people will read mostly because they want to quickly have an idea about what your work is about. So you must try, therefore, in your abstract to be concise to have that summary impact about all the work that you have done, maybe in 12 or maybe 30 pages. So that abstract must tell the reader exactly what's the relevance of your paper. So that's what can actually make someone decide to continue read the rest of your paper or not. But also what some people don't know is that the search engine actually rely on those abstracts, okay, to allow people to source the whole document. So the keywords that you have in your abstract must help people to actually source the whole paper. Okay. In terms of the structure, even the structure, you'll understand that the structure of the abstract actually touch every different section of your paper, because you must have a background in your abstract. You must have the methodology, a brief methodology. You must have the main result of your paper in your abstract and the implication, okay, of your findings. Those must actually be in your abstract. Okay, but you have to write that abstract in less than 300 words. That's very important. So the introduction, we have a number of sections when you are writing an introduction. People generally think that the introduction is just a background. It's not only the background, okay? Background is part of it. So in the introduction, you must be able to relate to previous publication, okay, that are similar to the work that you are doing. Okay. As you are doing that, having those information, you must actually try to emphasize on the conceptual idea that determine actually the novelty of your paper. And you must be able to clearly state what is novel or what set aside your paper compared to what has already been published. Okay. And for transition, going to the methodology, you must be able to clearly say what are the objectives you are trying to achieve through this paper. Okay. Or the main aim of your paper that allow you to transit to the next part of your paper, which is the methodology. In the methodology, as far as the natural science people are concerned, it's very important to talk about the chemicals that you have used in your experiment. This has to be in the past tense, right? Your abstract can be in the present or the past tense, but never in the future if the work has already been done. As you are writing a proposal, if you have an abstract in the proposal, that has to be in the future tense. But the abstract generally is when you have already covered the work. So the abstract is in the past or in the present tense, but your methodology is exclusively in the past tense. Okay? So here you have therefore to identify the source of your chemicals. Either you have maybe order the chemical from Max, from Sigma, you name them. So you must be able to mention that here the grade of your chemical is also something important. The samples, where did you collect your samples? It's also important if you are doing environmental work to provide a geographical map with the sampling point that you have to identify. Clearly give the coordinate of that location. Okay, so the equipment that you use, you must be able to tell people what equipment you use to carry out your analysis. Okay, what software did you use? The software are generally related to the equipment in this case. Okay, so as far as the method is concerned, so please give in detailed information. Okay, the methodology here, you have to tell exactly what you did in their experiment in order for you to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. Okay, so how did you carry out the investigation? Okay, and I say something here, as you are designing a methodology, you have to take into account the integrity of your result. This is how you build, this is where you build that up. You have to consider the control. You have to consider the replicability. Okay. So you have to consider also the error. So you know that the standard deviation has to be relative, depending of the experiment, generally lower than 10%. So the integrity of your result actually built from your methodology already. You have to carry out statistical analysis. Okay. So these analysis can have the descriptive or the inferential statistic. Okay. So all these elements allow you to clearly prove that the work that you have done is repeatable and that the result that you obtain will not just obtained by chance. Any person who follow the same protocol or the same procedure that you actually describe can actually achieve the same result. So the result and discussion session, this is where you actually use the data that you have collected to answer the question or to say how you achieve the objective that you set for yourself in the introduction. There's no bad result as long as the experiment were conducted accordingly. Okay, so if you have results that do not align with the initial hypothesis, you must just be able to explain why, okay, your result not align with the initial hypothesis. Okay. You might be coming up with something novel, something patentable, we never know. So you just have to be able as a scientist to explain why you got those results. That's very important. So the organization of this session actually is based on two different considerations. It can be organized based on the importance of the information with regard to the question that you initially set in the introduction, or it can be organized chronologically. That means it follows the order in the methodology. So it's still up to you to decide, but generally the second approaches follow. That means people actually work chronologically in the result and discussion session. I also want to mention that depending on the journal, these two can be combined, by that I mean the result and discussion, or they can be actually separate. So which means you present first the result and followed by the discussion. So each subheading may contain a combination of the following. So you use a test to explain about the research data. Then you use the figures to determine the trend or the relationship in your data. Okay. And you use the table most of the time if you have to present the exact value. Okay. But please, irrespective of what artwork you are using, they have to be clear, visible, and they actually have to follow a certain standard. Okay, you must not draw maybe your table as if you were still at high school. It has to be acceptable. Read the other articles. Download the article, read the article, look at the format of the article, and actually see how people draw the table so that you draw something that can actually be acceptable given the standard that you're actually trying to maintain or to reach. So the figures, there are many software that can allow you to throw acceptable figures. And these are the things that actually impact also in terms of the acceptability of your paper, how you are drawing your figures and the table. So take time to draw these figures and table. The discussion session actually will tell people about the importance and the relevance of your result. Okay. Importance and relevance with regard to what? Okay, we'll discuss that probably in the next slide. So first of all, I have a number of questions that have to be taken into consideration as you are writing the discussion. So you must ask this question: what experiment did you conduct and what were the results? Okay, what do the results mean? What were the important results from your study? Important with regard to what? How did the result answer your research questions? Did your results support your hypothesis or reject your hypothesis? What are the variables or factors that might affect your result? What were the strengths and limitations of your study? What other published works support your findings? What other published work contradict your findings? What possible factors might cause your finding different from other findings? Very important. That actually give you, that's already a tip in answering the two questions above. Okay. So if your findings are aligned, you must actually find, with the published work, you must actually find those work that support your findings. Okay. So if they are not aligned, so what factor, what are the parameters that actually contributed to the differences between your findings and other people's work? What's the significance of your work? What are new research questions to explore based on your findings? So if you follow properly these questions that were asked, you actually have 3 different aspects here that determine already the structure of your discussion. First of all, the importance with regard to the question. So in the first paragraph, or as part of your discussion, you must consider to discuss the answer of the research question provided by the findings. Are you answering the question that you ask in the introduction? Okay. So in the second paragraph, now you have to compare your work with previous work in the similar field. That allow you to interpret your result. Do they corroborate with those other work or not? So what are the factors that influence the trend? Okay. Now, the implication of your findings. How significant is your result. Now, that significance is with regard to previous work or is with regard to what you are trying to achieve in this work. So remember your objectives, remember your questions. Okay. Now you conclude. People also generally think that conclusion is just the summary of the body of the work, okay, or the paper. But you can actually delineate your conclusion into 3 different sections. First of all, you have to remind the reader about the problem that you are trying to solve. Secondly, you can now summarize the main findings. Okay. Thirdly, you have the implication of your findings. So just to read the slide, the first task of your conclusion is to remind the reader of your research problem. You'll have discussed this problem in depth throughout the body, but now the point is to zoom back out from the details to the bigger picture. Very important, avoid phrasing the problem here exactly the way you did in the introduction. Okay. Summarizing the paper. Having zoomed back in on the problem, it is time to summarize how the body of the paper went about addressing it and what conclusions this approach led to. Okay, that's generally what you are doing. It's relatively easy to summarize, focus on the main findings, and reflect on the questions that you set at the beginning. So depending on the nature of your research paper, this might mean restating your thesis and argument, or summarizing your overall findings. The implication, having summed up your key arguments or findings, the conclusion ends by considering the broader implications of your research. Why is your research relevant? Why is your research important? You can have an impact on the social, environmental, and economic aspect. This is the time to mention that. You can have the contribution, okay, to existing knowledge. This is where you actually have to mention that. People want to see that. Okay. Importance with regard to the industry. This is where people want to see. Some of the journal, as you're actually submitting, will ask you to have that section toward the end of your paper. What's the industrial relevance of your paper? Okay. There's no question. Let me just check. No question so far.
Yep,
So I will
there are no questions so far from the chat.
Okay.
Colleagues, if you do have a question, you can just raise your hand, or alternatively, you can just type under the chat.
Okay. From here to touch on the references, I will just say use recent references and relevant references. Okay. It's good generally to use the reference in the last 5 years. Okay. Be consistent with the referencing style, but obviously the referencing style must be informed by the author guideline. Okay. I will talk about the author guideline in the next few slides. Okay. Submission checklist. It's what you can also be guided generally by the author guideline. But here, verify that the scope and guidelines of the journal, that your paper actually responds to that. Okay. Ensure professional formatting. Format your paper accordingly. Okay. So generally, the journal has a line of formatting that you have to follow if you want to submit your paper in that particular journal. Ensure all the components of the paper are present and correct. So we saw the structure of the paper. Okay. So make sure that all the structure have been filled. Okay. And that they actually align with the regulation of the journal. So if they say not more than 150 words in the abstract, so if you write an abstract of 200 words, generally these days, as you are actually submitting your paper online already, you can be limited. Okay, that's why it's always good to have that author guideline. Because if you wrote an abstract of maybe 300 and they were asking for 200, so when you try to paste it in there, you'll just take 200 words. So you must check carefully. Or maybe you may take the 300 word, but actually it will not allow you to continue the submission. Okay, because the number of words or the accepted words, you exceeded those, you exceeded the number. So always check with the author guideline. Provide for errors and ensure a logical flow of ideas. The language is also an issue. Okay, you might not be English may not be your first language. That's not should not be a limitation. You must actually make use of a language editor to actually check your paper before you submit. Upload a separate cover letter. You always ask to do that. Okay. A cover letter is kind of letter that you address to the editor. What does it talk about? Generally, you have to mention the author of the paper, the title of the paper. You have to clearly mention that your paper may be exclusively submitted to that journal and not to any other journal. And sometimes he wants you to talk about the relevance of your paper. Ensure the research complies ethically to ethical standards, human and animal regulation, plagiarism. So these days we have AI, and people tend to misuse AI. It's a tool. You should not be denied the use of AI, but you must know how to use AI. As we always said, just get the idea from those, but be able to use your own words. Okay, don't just copy and paste. That's very important. So for the paper that you are writing, so when you submit, so as editor of journal, when you submit a paper, the first thing that I do is to check your paper for plagiarism. So that's the first thing. Okay. So if there's plagiarism, automatically it's rejected. Okay. So that's very important. Check the plagiarism level. Confirm that authorship requirements are met. For some of you who have already published, you'll see some of the journals, not all of them, require you to actually say what was the contribution of the authors that you have listed there, the authors of your paper. So, yeah, you must be careful to limit the contribution of someone just to the financial contribution. The contribution essentially intellectual contribution, scientific contribution. That's what people want to see, that they really contributed in terms of the design, in terms of the investigation, in terms of the writing of your paper, or maybe the supervision of the student. Provide contributions of each author as requested. Provide a graphic abstract and highlight where required. The graphic abstract is also asked by a number of journals. Even if it's not even it's not asked by the journal, it's actually add value if you can actually draw a very good graphic abstract, and that's important. The author guideline. I think people tend to look at the author guideline only when maybe they are about to submit their paper. So already when you are writing that paper, take time to look at the author guideline to actually see if the scope of your paper actually is suitable for that particular journal. Okay. So these are the things that you must actually focus on when you are reading the author guidelines. The scope, that's very important. The formatting of your paper. The ethical requirement, you must check all of that. And the submission process. Those are things that you check in the author guideline. So I have an assignment for you. Before I go there, is there any question?
I think so far, Prof.
No question. So I'll therefore proceed giving some assignment, an assignment to the student there. If maybe you can quickly, maybe you may have a paper already, or download a paper from a journal. You highlight the main section of the abstract. You actually cover that. The abstract has 4 different sections. So if in that paper you can highlight the 4 different sections of the abstract, identify the key sentence stating the relevance of the study, identify the key sentence stating how to achieve the main objective of the study, identify the key sentence revealing the significance of the findings, identify the key sentence that discusses the shortcoming and area to be considered for further investigation. That can be something, that's something that you can do maybe in 10 minutes. Let's say at 2:10, I will come back and maybe select maybe 2 or 3 people to show me what they have done. I'm still available in case there's any question, but I will be silent for now while waiting for you guys to. Okay, I can see there's a question. Chair, please, can you maybe allow the student?
Yes, Muketa, you can just unmute your mic.
Yeah, thank you. Nice presentation, Prof. I just want to ask.
Muketa, we can't hear you. You sound like a little bit far from a mic.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, I said nice presentation, Prof. My question here is, when you are writing a manuscript, what are the key areas that the reviewers check the most?
All the sections are important, but like I said, your abstract actually generally give the first impression. So, but remember what I said, to write a paper, everything starts from the design. Okay, already from the design, you must be able to ensure that you actually trying to solve a problem that was not already solved by someone else. or maybe has been maybe solved by many other people. Okay, so there must be a certain particularity with regard to what you are trying to solve, or maybe to investigate. Okay, so that's the first thing first. In the design, try to identify a problem, try to solve something that's relevant. Okay, so that's very important. Now, when you structure, or when you are designing the methodology of experimental section, so you must be able to use standard approach. I'm trying to just put it clearly here to you guys. So when you have the methodology, don't just use a certain approach because you saw any other person using that approach. Remember what I said in the introduction. As you are finalizing the introduction, there must be a transition. The objectives that you are providing by the end of your introduction, very important. They actually have to determine what approach you have to use to actually achieve those objectives. Okay, and I also say something very important, is that if you have the characterization to do in that particular work, make sure that you use very relevant equipment, and use the equipment that can actually allow you. Let's say, for example, if you are characterizing what the active group of maybe a compound, okay, use the equipment that can actually identify those active group without any dot, beyond dot. Okay, so that's and I say the equipment that you use for characterization generally, they determine the acceptability of your paper to around maybe 30 or plus %. Okay, use the relevant equipment. Okay, so when you are reading the papers, the recent papers, or depending maybe of the journal, those high impact factor accredited journal, actually, you can actually see what equipment people are using. Have been using recently. Okay, I understand that there's a challenge sometimes to get access to those equipment, but please, so when you write a paper, also know this, that when you write a paper, you must be able to know where is that paper fitting. Okay, is it a publishable paper? Is it a Q1? Is it a Q2 paper? So I think researchers sometimes are maybe too ambitious. So when you have a paper yourself, I think you must be able to evaluate the standard of your paper. Okay, so if you are trying to force a moderate paper into a journal of impact factor of 10 or more, you are just trying your luck, and generally it won't go past even the editor. You send back to you. Okay, coming back to your question. So I was just mentioning, I say all the sections are relevant, but these are things that you actually have to really focus on. So the abstract must clearly say, highlight the main findings, and those findings has to set apart your work from the other work. Okay, so when the reader read your abstract, you must be able to say, no, this is a work that was properly done in terms of the integrity of your result, but in terms also the relevance of those results. Okay, in your introduction, do you actually mention somewhere the particularity of your study? Is it a novel work? In the methodology, I said, if you have those objectives that allow you to transition to the methodology, make sure that all the approach that you are using in the methodology are actually suitable to actually achieve those objectives that you set for yourself in the introduction. Okay, clearly describe the experiment or the investigation that allow you to achieve those objectives. And there's a section very important that people sometimes do not consider as the data analysis. Okay, so data management, and also in terms of the accuracy, in terms of the repeatability of your result, make sure that you use statistical analysis. Oh, okay, to actually be able to see, okay, these results that are obtained, you didn't obtain those results by chance. You actually saw how structure the result and discussion. So if you present findings, you must be able to do the interpretation of those findings. But again, use recent, mostly recent publication to support what you are saying, if they are supporting it. But if they're not supported, okay, you must be able to actually say why it's not, your findings are not aligned with other work, or maybe why maybe your findings not aligned to our initial hypothesis. I will say that in the result and discussion section, how you draw your artwork, that is your figures and tables, and how you interpret those are key in the result and discussion session. Okay, that's very important. And in conclusion, I say to you, don't just consider the conclusion as a summary. It must not just be a summary. It's not just a summary, just summarize the findings. Just remind the reader about the problem that you are trying to solve, but also what's the implication of your findings. What's the implication of your findings? Why is your work important? So that's essentially it, yeah. So if you have such paper, it's easy to be published. It's easy for that paper to be published in Q1. Easy that you publish that paper in Q1.
Prof,
But
yes, Prof.
yeah.
I gotta ask a question, because how do you then gauge where to submit your paper? Because most of the time we just select a particular journal, and then when we submit, the paper get rejected. I mean, how do you gauge the quality of the work that this paper deserve to be published in this particular journal with this impact factor? Because in most cases, we just guess depending on the impact factor that we want, but the paper end up being rejected. So, I mean, how do you then identify that this paper is suitable to be published in this area or in this journal?
Okay, the first thing is the scope. Okay, so the work that you did, okay, is that something that the journal actually is focusing on? So the scope of the study, okay. In those author guidelines, when you read those author guidelines, they will clearly say to you what type of work they are publishing in that particular journal. So read that before you attempt to submit your paper there. But also very important, try to read the paper submitted in that journal in the past maybe 2 to 5 years. Look at the standard of the paper that have been published in that journal. Okay, and look at the standard of your paper. That's very important. because there's no mistake. Those papers consistently publish paper of a certain standard. So if you read those papers, and you look at your paper, it actually has the standard. How do you judge the standard of your paper? The first thing first is in the design of the paper, the novelty, the particularity of your paper. Are you working on something that has not been covered yet? Or is the approach that you are using is different, significantly different to what people have been using? Have you coming up with a new methodology, new approach of investigation? Okay, that's clear. So what are the equipment that you have been using to carry out the analysis? Okay, so, and also when you use an equipment, people, it's not just about collecting the data from the equipment. So you must actually be able to know how to present the data that you are getting from a certain equipment. Because even with the XRD, it will give you already a form of spectra automatically. Some people will just take that spectricities, those spectra as they are, and just paste them in their paper. Other people will get the data that generated those graphs and actually try to plot their own data and provide more information per peak. Do you understand? When you look at those two figures, totally different, day and night, okay? So you must see how people process their data, although from sometimes the same equipment. Go back and read again the paper. So take a journal of impact factor 1, take a journal of impact factor 10, and look at the way people are presenting their data. Okay. Especially when they are drawing a figure. Okay. For the table, you can still manage to get easily the same type of standard of table. But the figures, the interpretation, the information that they are getting from the equipment, totally different. So we must sometimes also be lucky to have good technicians in our lab, people operating those equipment, because you as a student coming in, you don't have that experience. So you need someone, a good technician, to tell you, okay, this is how you process those data. Very important. It's very, very important. And now when you take those data, what do you say about those data? Go back and read the papers from those journals where you want to submit and see the difference. Now, the language is unfortunately a big problem, because people can have a brilliant idea or maybe have achieved very good work, very good findings, but the way they present it is a problem. Okay, there's no flow. Okay. Sometimes, so if you have that limitation, it's the case for most of us. If English is not our first language, we must try to make use of language editor, good language editor, by the way, because it's also good when the language editor has a background knowledge with regard to the scientific content. So that's very important. Okay. So those are the things that actually make the paper. So go look at the scope of the paper. Look at the paper that have been published in the past 2 or 5 years in that journal. Okay. Try to compare to what you want to submit to them. Is what you want to submit to them is even closer to what have been published there? Okay.
Okay, Prof. Yes, Prof.
Yes.
So another question again, because most of our work that we want to publish, we draw them from our, for instance, from our project that we currently doing. Let's say you're doing masters or PhD. So my question is, when you're conducting a study, right, with the hope of improving a certain property towards, let's say you're working in an alloy, right, and you are hoping to improve the properties of an alloy, but based on the work, on your lab research work, the results are not really corresponding with what you were hoping for. How do you then draft a paper based on that incident where your results are not really talking to what you were hoping to get?
In my introduction, I said something about the conceptual idea. Do you have that background, scientific background knowledge that tells you exactly the meaning of your findings? Okay. So remember also what I said. If your findings do not align with your initial hypothesis, you must be able to find the factors that justify the difference or the differences. Okay. There's nothing as, bad data as long as those data were obtained uh, through accurate or through proper investigation. Okay. So if there was no mistake, okay, if everything was done, okay, as they should have been. So it simply means that your findings are actually have a particularity. It might be something new that you just have to explain to people that although people, previous researcher found this, it's possible also to get the result that you achieve because 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's where you can actually say, okay, maybe I have something that I have to patent because it actually reflects on something that was not yet covered. So if you have such data, as you say, that do not align with previous work, just go back to the conceptual ideas, okay, the scientific knowledge that govern the achievement of some phenomena, okay? So if that mechanism can explain that it's possible to obtain what you obtain, and if the methodology or the investigation was properly done, then you have something new or something relevant, and something that can be discussed. Okay, so you can now add to the existing knowledge. Okay, and that's actually what makes a scientist someone who can explain how and why they achieve a certain result, they obtain a certain result, which is not necessarily the same as the other. So the interpretation of the result in this case is very important. Did I answer you?
You did, Prof. You did. Another thing you mentioned about Q1 and Q2 and Q, how do you gauge those things?
I will send you my booklet.
Okay.
I explained the quartile very well there. because he was not part of this presentation, I didn't cover that. But complementary information for all of you, you will find that in the booklet that I will share with you. Okay.
Okay.
So the chair just have to remind me to send that to him, and then he can circulate that. Obviously, he said there's a survey or something that you guys have to actually be able to get those documents. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Oh, it's already 20 past. Okay. So I was expecting to get to go back to you guys at 10 past. So it was the 20. Chair, I still have time, right?
Yes, Prof, you still have time. I think you have
Oh,
about 40 minutes.
okay, thank you. So going back to you guys, I want to be able to see the hands. I don't know. But yeah, let's go back to you guys now. Okay, the assignment was for you to identify a journal article and highlight a number of sections. Is there anyone who want to discuss what he or she did with us?
Colleagues, you can just unmute your mic. I have enabled everyone mics, so you can just unmute your mic and share with the rest of us. Or you can, if you prefer to type under the chat, you can just type under the chat.
After this, we will have to, okay, there's a hand. Selane.
Yes,
Selane
Tilani, you
Ndlovu.
can go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Should I put a picture in the
But
in the
Chair,
chat section?
yeah, that's actually a good point. Can they share their I don't know, is it their presentation or something? Is it possible? That will actually be good for everyone to see what they highlighted in that journal. Is it possible, Chair? Or maybe, I don't know, send to me or send to you. I don't know. How can we do that?
I wouldn't mind sharing, but I can also maybe take a screenshot and put it in the chat section.
Okay. Okay. If it's possible to attach the whole thing in the chat, because you can also upload that document. I can maybe try to share from my side.
Okay, so I've put the image on the chat section.
Okay. Let me see if I can share this.
So let me know if I can continue. I'm not sure
Okay.
if anyone is able to see the image I shared.
No, hold on a second. I'm trying to make that possible.
Yeah, no, we can see there on the chat.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Prof, we can see your screen.
Oh, okay. Yes, the student can go ahead. Talk to us.
Okay, so the assignment was for us to identify the relevance of the study, and that's what I highlighted, the first highlight there. And then secondly, we were to identify how the authors aim to, or how they've gone about achieving the goal or the objectives of their study. And then the third one was to identify the significance of the results they obtained from the study. And lastly, to identify the shortcomings and the future research they want to do. So it's only the last part that was not covered in this abstract, in this particular abstract, the shortcomings and the future research. But their significance, the way their methodology or how they're going to achieve the objectives was mentioned in their abstract, as well as the significance of their results, as I've highlighted.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the effort. Yeah, it's true that here you focus only on the abstract. Yeah, but I was actually asking to focus on the whole paper to identify all those different section. Okay, let's deal with the abstract. In the abstract, we expect four different sections. So the first has to do with the background. The second, we briefly present the methodology. The third one, the main findings must be presented, but also I have to advise you guys, when you are presenting the main findings, it's always very important to present the quantitative data. Quantitative data, very important. For example, if you are saying we achieve high recovery, you must actually be able to provide some figures, 20%, 50, 60%. We want those quantitative data. Yeah. And the last section has to do with the implication of the findings. So let's look at this abstract. So if first start with the dimension of material extrusion, 3D printing filament plays a pivotal role in determining. So that's already a kind of motivation. So I will say background or motivation. Okay, so that's what it's presenting. Okay, this study focuses on continue with that. And then we have the design of experiment was carried out. You understand that we are starting already with the methodology. And it goes on, and okay. And it says, the models exhibited good predictive performance, the coefficient of determination of blah, 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 blah. And then eventually we have that third part, you understand that's the main finding. That's the result, right? The
Yes.
result presented there. And then the last part, does this study can be used to predict, you understand, and you say the significance of the result, the implication of the result. So you see that we have four different sections here. Am I correct? So she took randomly a paper, but you already see that those four different sections are coming out. So that's how you have to structure your abstract. Okay, even if it's an abstract for a conference, as long as you have already generated the data. So if you already have your result, this is the structure of the abstract. Just by passing, if you are writing a conference paper where you don't have a result yet, you may have, let's say, maybe around three section also, you still have that background motivation. You briefly present the methodology because you have it, and then you can postulate. You can postulate with regard to your result, the expectation. What do you expect as far as the result is concerned? That's okay, conference paper. But let's go back to what we are focusing. We have to do today, the research paper. We have the data. Then our abstract must be in this format, 4 different sections. Okay, any other want to share?
There is another abstract there on the chat.
That's it. There is another one. The Vuho, you can just share, or Prof, you want to share the image first, and then the Vuho can go ahead.
Okay, I will try to save this. Then. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Prof, we can.
Okay. He or she can go ahead. Is it
the
me?
Vuho, you can just unmute your mic and go ahead.
Good afternoon, Prof. Good afternoon, Prof. And
good afternoon,
everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ndibone Riene. I've attempted the activities that we were given, also to understand whether we are understanding what a Prof has presented to us. I managed to get this article by Prof. Van der Sturen and others. They assess the topics about transport equity in South Africa. They were assessing on how much the progress was made over the last two decades. I managed to have highlighted the objectives. Let me start by reading the abstract. It says, transport equity justice is a field of research that has been gaining momentum as South Africa is the least equitable country in the world, according to the World Bank. The authors felt compelled to assess if this justice is also present in the transport equity. I've highlighted it as objective, stand to be corrected, and then they also used as metric to assess this equity, availability, access, safety, security, affordability, inclusion, sustainability, human rights and equity, and fundamental equity as fundamental concept of social justice transport. I didn't highlight this one. It looks as it's a methodology that they've used where they say they've assessed the data of South Africa household travel survey from 2003, 2013, and 2012 in order to establish the trends in travel times, the mode used, travel purposes, as well as perception of the road safety and personal security. What I've identified again as a main section of the research is that over the past 2 decades, there has been an increase in average of travel time with evidence of racial disparity related to the travel time burden. And then the results that I found is that transport justice has not been significantly improved despite major investment in the public transport system in the form of bus rapid transit system, amongst others. I was unable to identify or to pinpoint the shortcomings and further and then the issue of that necessitated a further investigation. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you for the effort. Thank you. The paper or the abstract that we have still have those 4 different sections according to what I see. Obviously, you have the motivation that you pointed as the objectives. Obviously, also you highlighted the brief methodology, but there's a section also of result there when it talks about the trend. And then you have the last section that could be considered a conclusion or implication of the findings, where we have the analysis reveal more metric and blah, 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 yeah. And that's the conclusion or the implication of the work. And just before that, you have the trend that has been discussed, that's with regard to their findings or the parameters that they have considered for investigation. The independent parameters, yeah. So yeah, that's you can still see those 4 sections. Do you agree with me?
Yes,
Was
yes,
it student? Yeah, that's yeah. Okay,
yes.
thank you for sharing. Yeah. Who else? Is there something else here?
Nothing from the chat so far. It was just
Okay.
the 2 that shared.
Yeah, if you allow me, we receive an abstract. I just I have that somewhere else. I just have to take it and discuss it, and then we will conclude.
Okay, no problem. Colleagues, those who are still willing to share, you can just share your picture under the chat as other colleagues are doing, or alternatively, you can just unmute your mic. I've enabled everyone's mic. You can just unmute your mic and share with us.
Okay, I still expect them. Let me maybe share. Okay, I was still expecting them to work throughout the paper because it's not only about the abstract. As it, I discussed all the different sections of the paper. So you have the introduction, you have the methodology, you have the result and discussion, and you have the conclusion. So you can just, if you can highlight those different points throughout the paper, that will be important. So for example, in the introduction, you can highlight the section where it shows the novelty or maybe the objective of the paper. In the methodology, you can actually highlight the section that allow to achieve those objectives. In the conclusion, in the result and discussion, you can highlight the alignment with the initial question or with previous research paper. I know that generally in that section, there are more than one papers that can maybe consider to establish a certain similarity, but one is enough. And then in the discussion there, you can actually highlight the limitation, how the author present the limitation of their study. In the conclusion, you can highlight the implication of the study. If you can do that in a whole paper, and if you can volunteer to discuss that with us.
Okay, Prof, how much time do you give us to do that? Probably 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
We have 20 minutes left, maybe 5 minutes. They were already working on a paper, so maybe they can just continue to throughout the paper, and maybe 5 minutes will be enough to
Okay. So colleagues, you can do your assignment and we will be back in 10 to, let me just say 10 to 3, and then we'll be back and start over with discussion and share. And if you manage to finish earlier, you can just start sharing with us, and then so that others can share as well. So if you are fast enough, you manage to finish your assignment earlier, you can just start sharing.
Okay, while you are doing that, Chair, I will go through this abstract. I'm sharing now. Can you see the abstract?
Yes, Prof, we can see the abstract.
Okay. Is the student in the room? In the meeting, can the student, does the student want to be identified? Because I actually remove the name of the authors there. Just keep the anonymity.
Yeah.
Okay. So this abstract, I'm just also reading it with you. I didn't really go through. So it's from the chemistry department. And we have this title, but the first observation is that the keywords must not be there. The keywords must be just after the abstract. Okay. And if you read the abstract, waste-derived nanomaterial have garnered a lot of attention in various applications, including environmental remediation and monitoring. In this study, waste polyethylene terephthalate was upcycled and depolymerized to yield terephthalic acid, serving as an organic linker and a carbon precursor. The synthesized material were. So just before I continue, I'll just stop quickly and identify the section as I'm progressing. So the first section already, going from waste-derived materials and remediation and monitoring is a kind of background or motivation. And then the second section starting in this study, waste polyethylene terephthalate until derived nanocomposite. That's the second section. Second section, that is the methodology, brief methodology. The nanocomposite was comprehensively characterized and applied for the rapid detection of tributylin in aqueous. Oh, it continues the second section, sorry. TBT is an organotin compound that is highly toxic and possesses significant threat to human health and aquatic environment. The sensor performance was further validated using this green expensive approach offers alternative, non-invasive, real-time monitoring tool. Furthermore, the study highlights the dual. Okay, we have something here. This is an abstract where the result are not presented. Okay. So probably the student has not yet completed the experiment. Sorry, it has not yet completed the experiment. And okay, it's still busy with the experiment. And I don't know, the target here probably is a conference, because you cannot write such abstract for a journal article. The student, does the student want to comment on this? Because I will clearly say that the methodology. Okay, someone's trying to talk there. Someone's trying to talk.
Mic was on. You can just under the mic and down. Okay.
Okay, so let me come.
It seemed like it was an error, Prof.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm reading this abstract for the first time. I will see that actually we have furthermore, the study highlights the dual benefit of circular economy and sustainability by leveraging waste into functional nanomaterial. Okay, so we have basically three sections here. Okay, we have the background of motivation or motivation, and then we have the methodology, which is actually the biggest section of this abstract. And then you have a kind of implication of the study. Okay, a kind of implication of the study. If you look at the this part, which start this green and inexpensive approach offer alternative, non-relevant, non-invasive real-time monitoring tool. Furthermore, the study highlight the dual benefits of circular economy and sustainability by leveraging waste into functional nanomaterial. That's kind of the relevance of the paper or the investigation. Okay, so that's the last section. And I say this is possible. And in fact, that's actually how I structure a conference paper. So you have your background and motivation, you have your methodology, and then you can kind of postulate with regard maybe to your findings, or maybe highlight how relevant your work is. So we have 3 sections here. So I assume it's probably the case that the student is not yet done with the experiment, but probably want to send this to a conference. I would say for most conferences, there's no problem. It can be accepted, given that by the time they ask for the full paper, that you can actually be able to send the full paper. So yeah, it can be accepted, but mostly for conferences. Yeah. Okay. So if the student is there, and also the observation was that the keywords must be just after the abstract, right? Must be after the abstract, not before the abstract. Okay. Do you have something in the chat with regard to the assignment?
Nothing so far, Prof.
Okay. So
Yeah, still good.
by the show of hand, a student, is there anyone still working on the assignment? If it's not the case, then we can safely close them. Is there anyone working on the assignment? By the show of hand. If maybe we can give you 2 or 3 minutes more. Okay, no one. Okay, Chair, I think this will conclude my my presentation. If there's no more question, Chair, I think I'll give it back to you. I will share the booklet. Okay, there's a manuscript coming here. Netia.
Yeah, I just want. Oh, sorry. Let me put my. Yeah, I just wanted the chair to confirm where we're gonna get the booklet. If we can just tell us where we're gonna get the booklet, then we'll be fine.
Okay. Okay, we'll get the booklet from the chair. I think he asked you to do something before you guys receive the slides and the booklet. Okay, I think he will clarify that to you before we close.
Yes. Yes, Prof. We will upload the resources on model community, which is the postgraduate research masters and PhD model community. So if you are not yet enrolled, kindly send us an email on RCT inquiries, and we will happy to assist you with the enrollment. Also on the RCT MS, which is the platform that is available on your ULink and under services. The last option is RCTMS. That is where we will find all our previous recording as well as the resources. However, we will share with everyone via the email address. So if you have registered or if you have filled in the feedback that I've just shared, we will get your email address and then we will be able to share the resources via email.
So that's it for me. It was quite a pleasure to share this presentation with you guys. All the best with your study. As I said at the beginning, I'm also an UG alumni. I study in this university. So it was actually good for me to share this with you. Thank you, Chair, for the invitation.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. Elvis. This was very insightful and informative session. We really do appreciate your time that we have taken to facilitate this kind of workshop. We do hope and believe that the colleagues who have taken their time also to attend, they have learned something today that they can share with the rest of the colleagues or those who are supervising with their students, and those who are studying, they can put it into practice. So thank you so much, Prof, and thank you to everyone for taking your time. A quick reminder to fill in the feedback, and also a reminder that the resources, as Prof mentioned, we will share them via your email addresses if you have filled in the feedback. Also, we will upload the resources on our digital platforms. If you are not yet enrolled, you can email us on RCT inquiries, and then we will send you the resources and be able to enroll you or to assist you with the enrollment. So with that being said, thank you so much to everyone. I'm now officially ending this session. Thank you once again, Prof. We can have a great day further. I mean, it's an evening now. Have a great evening or afternoon further. Thank you, everyone. I'm now officially ending this session.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.